What's going on, guys? Welcome to Thy Kingdom Come. We are a podcast where we talk everything Chiefs and NFL. If you haven't already, make sure that you're subscribing to this content so you get it ahead of time. You get notifications so we don't have to constantly remind you that we're doing it. We don't mind doing it. Follow us on. We do have a Twitter now, so follow us on there to get notifications. We're going to start this episode off. It's going to look a little bit different because there's not a lot that happened this past week. But to help us with all of that information, we've got the guy behind the mind of TKC, that guy sitting across from me. It's Deontay. Say what's up, man.
Hey, yo, what's up? Deontay over here. Get to talk to you this morning.
Because you can't see them?
Yes, I can't see them, nor can they see me. But,
Okay.
yeah, we're good.
Cool. We got this cool little TV set up on the wall now, so we can see everything our stats guy Josiah pulls up, and he is our stats guy, contrary to week one.
To unpopular belief?
Unpopular belief. Being me and my saying he's just the stats guy.
Yeah, it's okay.
And you're not here against your will anymore?
No.
I'm not convinced. Awesome. Cool, man. So what are we going to start with today, Deontay?
So today, we're going to start with just a few moves around the league. It's been a little, well, I say in the past week, it's been a little quiet, but it's been a big splash for a move that happened for the Chiefs again. But yeah, just a few moves around the league. We got Cordell Patterson, who we kind of mentioned briefly last week about a potential.
I really wanted him.
Yeah, about a potential backup RB. But Cordell Patterson has signed with the Steelers on the 2-year, $6 million. So he's getting, $3 million a year. Don't worry, I'll help you guys out with your math there, so you don't have to think this early about what that comes down to. And then you also got Tre'Davious White, who we did mention last week about potential, just a veteran option in the secondary. But you got Tre'Davious White, who signed with the Rams on a 1-year, $8.5 million with a max of $10 million there. So you actually got pretty decent money. For us to take him up, I probably wouldn't have gave him all of that. But, hey, good for him. He got out of the Bills organization, went over to the NFC because he's like, we can't get past the Chiefs. So we get it.
Makes sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. And then we got Mike Edwards, who was a former Chiefs, and he played a big role last year when he came stepping in when Brian Cook went out for injury. Mm-hmm. Mike Edwards came in and played a huge role in the secondary, but he has signed over to the enemy with the with the Buffalo Bills. So he is an enemy now. Like they said, you're dead to us. So, no, I'm just kidding. Mike Edwards, we love you. We love you. But he signed a 1-year, $2.8 million with a $1.6 million guaranteed at signing. See, that's the type of contract I'm talking about, bringing some players in,
Right. Everybody wants all this money, and we're just like, you'll get championships instead.
Right. Just
championships.
Just a team effort,
Right.
So, but Mike Edwards, good luck to you out there. We'll hopefully see you sometime this year. So, but yeah, those are just a few moves around the league. There were some other things that happened with a few little coaches signed here and there. But as
little coaches,
big NFL coaches. So, but some signings, there, but not too many crazy moves outside of the one that happened with the Chiefs, which we're going to step into now, and that's talking about our boy Kadarius Sneed.
I will remember you.
Yes, beautiful. It's beautiful. It brings tears to my eyes. So, Kadarius Sneed has signed with the Tennessee Titans for a 4 years, $76.4 million contract with a $20 million signing bonus, and he's getting $55 million guaranteed. Now, Sneed, he wanted to be up there in the top paid cornerbacks. And you got to think about it. This guy, we drafted him in the 4th round. It's like, man, it's so good to see our kids growing up,
Right.
We drafted this guy in the 4th round, and just he developed so well. Our our DB's coach, he is amazing at just developing players. And this guy who we drafted in the 4th round, who would have thought would have been getting some big money just, some several years later. And that's our boy Dave Merritt is amazing at that. So understand with this move happening, that's why I like as a Chiefs fan, Chiefs, I think that we're in good hands.
Yeah.
Because we got some young guys in the secondary, and Dave Merritt will help develop those guys, in which right now Joshua Williams has stepped up to CB2.
Right.
So he'll be on the other side. So I think Dave Merritt will help develop him and some of these other guys. So we don't have to panic.
So let's talk about who we've lost.
Yes.
Over the last 5-6 years, whatever it's been. So think about it. I like to take it back further than that with Eric Berry. I miss you, buddy. But Eric Berry, we dealt Tre'Davious Ward, right? Fantastic defensive back. Tyrann Mathieu, Juan Thornhill. Who was the other one?
You can't forget Dirty Dan.
Dirty Dan. Yo, I say what you will about Dirty Dan Sorensen, but that man made plays when it mattered. He made plays when it mattered.
He always came through.
Always came through. I understand it wasn't the most conventional of ways, and one-on-one he wasn't the best.
Right.
But, man, you're not sneaking a fake kick by him.
No, you're not. Dirty Dan is there, and he got you.
Yeah, we have all those guys that have come through the system, left. We didn't sign money, and we're bringing all these guys in.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right? So you've got Trent McDuffie.
Yep.
You have
who I would say, to be honest, I know that arguably the best DB that we had on our team last year, because up until week 9, he was prorated at he was number 1
right
up until week 9, and after week 9 he dropped down to number 4. With I think his PFF rating was over 80 something or 86 or something like that. So
such a terrible drop off.
Yeah, I know, right? So that guy basically was already our number 1. He just didn't, and he was a 1st round draft pick. So, but he just wasn't our. I guess you would say he just wouldn't say our tenured number 1 because we had Sneed.
Well, so let's think about that though. Is Trent McDuffie? I think as the year progressed, had a lot less attention. There was a smaller amount of balls thrown his direction because of how good he was for those first 9 games. So in Sneed, I saw something on X, formerly known as Twitter, where somebody said that L'Jarius Sneed may have had all these penalties. I don't know exactly how many penalties he had. But L'Jarius Sneed had all these penalties, but we kind of asked him to play hard, press hard, make contact if contact's necessary. So those penalties aren't just because he's making stupid plays. Majority of them are because he's playing hard coverage. And it's one of those things where some of those are going to be toss-up penalties where somebody's not going to know whether a referee is going to call it or not. One referee team might, another might not. So I don't think some of those penalties are really a bad thing per se. It prevented a lot. I mean, we had teams average, what was it, 14 points or 15 points a game, something like that against us, 18 points, whatever it was.
Yeah, I think it came down to 16, I believe. Our stats guy, Josiah, helped me out. So Trent McDuffie's PFF grade was an 82 last year, and so 82.9. And so here's the thing. Again, when we drafted McDuffie, he was going to be one of the number 1 nickel cornerbacks. And now that it's a guy, again, Dave Merritt has helped develop. He can play inside, outside. He's a lockdown corner.
Yeah.
And, Sneed, again, like you said, we asked him to do some very aggressive, intimidating things at the line to get in players' heads.
Right.
You got to have that guy that just has that grit, and he was the guy that said, hey, coach, I'll do it. So, those penalties, some of them when we're watching the game, we're like, are you serious? You call that? But arguably so. It's part of the game plan of what we had.
For sure.
And here's the thing: who is to say that somebody else can step up to become that physical player that L'Jarius Sneed was for us last year,
Right.
with the past couple years.
Yeah.
So
Looks like L'Jarius Sneed had 11 penalties on the season for 82 yards, it looks like.
yeah,
But I'm going to be honest, that's less than 10 yards of penalty. I'll take that, man.
yeah, and his penalties were, we can say, maybe debatable, but they were worth it in the time of it. But for what we was getting out of him. So listen, this was a huge deal. And we know that there's been a lot of talk and controversy about what we got for him. And the biggest picture we kind of talked about, the biggest picture that you got to look at is to have a player play on a $19 million franchise tag for the Chiefs this year just was not doable.
Right.
We just cannot let that be. Not that to say, we're not saying that the guy isn't worth it or anything of that nature, but it's just the fact that we do have some other holes to plug in. Mm-hmm. And so with that being said, him playing for $19 million on the franchise tag just wouldn't necessarily going to work for us. Right. But here's the thing. We have to trust the front office. You got to understand, these guys are playing the long game here. Yeah. And so and this is also an opportunity for Sneed to go out and spread his wings a little bit. But here's this little funny topic here is the fact that look at L'Jarius Sneed. The Chiefs, I think we finished top 3 defense or so. Mm-hmm. And here, Justin, let me see what's your thoughts on this.
Okay.
All right. Do the Chiefs losing Sneed? Do we drop out of the top 10 overall defense? Do we finished last year as number 2, I think behind Baltimore it was. So do we fall out of the top 10 defense, or check this out, or does L'Jarius Sneed not play like the L'Jarius Sneed we have seen with the Chiefs? What's your take on that?
So when it comes to L'Jarius Sneed, I think it comes down to scheme, right? How is their defensive coordinator going to use him? I think Spagnuolo. I always say his name wrong. Spagnuolo. But he's
Italian.
He's no. Bibbidi boobidi. It's okay, guys. I'm Italian. I can say that. But he is the best at drawing up schemes. I don't think there's anybody better in the NFL. And so when it comes to L'Jarius Sneed, as long as the defensive coordinator utilizes Sneed in his strengths, I think he's going to have a good season. That being said, the Chiefs are not dropping out of the top 10.
And I would agree.
I'm going to throw this. The biggest reason is number 95 up front.
Yes, sir.
Chris Jones. As long as he's getting pressure on the quarterback with George Karlaftis, who tied him in sacks this year, like those two going after the quarterback's nightmares. They no longer have to worry about Aaron Donald. They have to worry about Stone Cold Chris Jones.
Yeah, and this is true.
And the Greek Freak.
Yep. And so yeah, I agree. I think the Chiefs will stay. Hey, we may, we are losing a big piece, so we may drop to maybe that 6 or 7, which is okay. But it will be intriguing to see just how L'Jarius Sneed, how he plays out this year. We hope the best for him, except if, whenever it comes to playing against the Chiefs, you know what I mean? But, playing in Spag's defense, he's a mastermind. And so, we'll see. But I agree. I think we'll stay in that top 10, and we got the question mark around Sneed. So, listen, love you, Sneed. Wish the best out there for you. We're happy that you got the money that you want. But again, you're dead to us. just kidding. Colin Murray over here. So,
oh my gosh.
But
that was crazy.
Yeah, pretty crazy. But it's all good.
We're not going to talk about that.
Yeah. So, but yeah, we'll continue to move along here. So, Sneed, happy for you, man. So, moving him, and that gives us about $19 million added to the cap space. Well, after some of our recent signings, and things have went through. We're right around that 14 million at the moment, and we won't go too much into this at all, but that's without reconstructing Joe Toney or Jawan Taylor yet. So hey, again, the Chiefs are on the move, and we're just waiting to see what comes out. So with freeing up some of this, we know that we need some depth pieces, right? So one of the ones that, I know we were all probably a little bitter last year. I know I was. So I was like, man, are you serious? But one of those guys is OBJ. He's a wide receiver out there, and he's estimated around $11.9 million a year. Again, he would have to probably come to the – listen, we don't need another MVS, on the team. So if he comes to the Chiefs, buddy, you got to take a pay cut because,
Right.
just saying. And what's funny is he even started following Rashee Rice on Instagram. So he's trying to throw probably some little, just some little hinters, pointers out there.
Did OBJ win a Super Bowl with the Giants? Was he a part of that Giants team?
OBJ.
I don't know if he's been around.
I don't
that
know.
long.
He was a part.
He came after that.
Yeah, he was a part of the Rams.
Right.
He was a part of the Rams
Oh, he
winning
was
their
a part-
Super Bowl.
yeah.
That's the year that in the Super Bowl he tore his ACL, which I would say in that Super Bowl game, his numbers were potentially. I think if he would have continued out that game, he probably could have got the MVP of the Super Bowl because he was very active and solid. And when he went to the Rams, his attitude changed a little bit. There was still a little drama, but not as much. But we all know that Andy Reid can contain a lot of that drama. So, hey.
He wasn't punching, kicking nets.
Yes. So, we're looking just for some depth pieces at the wide receiver as we continue. Another wide receiver that is still out there is Tyler Boyd. He's estimated around $8.9 million a year. He's kind of always been that. He was kind of number one when A.J. Green was there in the Cincinnati.
Right.
And then, kind of as Jamar Chase and T. Higgins came around, he's kind of dropped number three. He's just that old faithful, reliable. Last year he had 67 receptions, 667 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But again, you're playing alongside Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and that was without Joe Burrow, who got injured. So again, I think
Browning did so good.
He did. So I think he's just a still solid veteran option. You got Mike Thomas is out there. He's estimated on $9.2 million. And listen, I know we look at a lot of things about longevity, and you're like, man, this guy's been injured. But I actually love this option because you got to remember, this guy was once in the top 5 for MVP voting. Now, we know his stats wasn't too sexy last year with 39 receptions, 448 yards, and 1 touchdown, and he only played 10 games. We get it. But here's the thing. Michael Thomas and some of these other guys have just veteran presence in the receiver room. We don't need you to be number one. We just need you to come in, help our guys compete, teach them some more of the ropes, and just help our receiving core just get better. So those are a couple little options for receiver-wise. Secondary, we know we lost Sneed. I think it would be beneficial to bring another veteran presence alongside. We got Justin Simmons is still out there. We know he's a safety, but the guy, we got guys that can play a little bit everywhere. But Justin Simmons, he's estimated about $11 million a year. Last year, he had 53 tackles, 2 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions, and 8 passes defended. He has decent size. He's 6'2", 202 pounds. So that's a pretty decent safety. And just think about it. You get a guy like that, veteran presence. Now maybe you move Shamari Connor around to play some nickel corner, and it just boosts our secondary. You got Xavier Howard out there, a veteran guy. I know that there's some just some little discrepancies with his longevity as well. But you got to remember, back in 2020, this guy had 10 interceptions. So he was in in the middle of his prime or so, and he played all games that year and had 10 interceptions. So listen again. We need some depth. We need somebody to come in and just bring some of that veteran presence to some of these younger guys. Not that Sneed has been around for a long time, but he's just been in the league a little while. So, having a guy like that, alongside of some of these young guys because McDuffie is still young. Joshua Williams is young. Jalen Watson is young. Najee Johnson is young. Shamari Connor is young. Brian Cook is young. Justin Reed is probably our oldest guy in the secondary. So it'll just help overall. And again, you need a guy who can come solid, which another guy who was very solid the past several years in this, as he's getting older, is Stephon Gilmore.
Yeah. I don't believe the estimated value they have for him, but continue.
Yeah, his estimated value is at $11.1 million a year. Now, we know with the Colts, he kind of 2 years ago he was really kind of revamping in his old age a little bit, but he was solid. And then he went to Dallas last year. They had Diggs go down, and he stepped in there big. So, again, I don't necessarily like the money value, but I do like him as a veteran guy and who was a lockdown corner,
right,
in his prime. And he still, got speed. He still can keep up and play with the wide receiver ones. So I do like Stephon Gilmore a lot as well, just not for the money. A couple other pieces that we need to round out for sure is our offensive line. We gotta boost something there. And, we got David Bakhtiari. He's still out there, 6'4", 310. Mm-hmm. He is 32 years old. But, again, you were looking to bring somebody in to come in and help compete with Wanya Morris,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so Wanya Morris, I do actually have high hopes for this season just because so he dealt with a little bit of injury. Like, we didn't get to see him a whole bunch this season, although I thought we probably should have with the way Donovan Smith plays at times. But that being said, there are still high hopes. We put a lot of stock in him, so we really want to see Wanya Morris succeed in that fact. So, I mean, who really knows?
Yeah,
man?
and
Who really knows?
Yeah, and help develop him. So again, some of these veteran guys to help. Mm-hmm. We know that Mekhi Becton is out there, which his estimated salary is about $12.9 million a year, right. Which I really don't like based off how he played. But he's a mammoth of a man.
Right.
He's 6'7", 363 pounds, and he's only 24 years old. Listen, and again, some of that, you're a product of your environment. And getting around a culture who win. And listen, all of these guys that we're talking about bringing in, all of the guys that we have talked about that we re-signed, I believe that this upcoming year, they're going to come in with a new mentality.
Right.
Especially because when you think about a three-peat, and we made some moves to just really help in areas with the same coaching staff, I just think that everybody's going to come in with the new attitude, new mindset. Mm-hmm. And, again, when you bring in some of these new guys that maybe on paper we may not be the biggest fans, but listen, I'll be honest, it's really hard to do worse than Donovan Smith last year. So, listen, a 24-year-old to develop that is just a mammoth. Like, I mean, hey, Andy Reid is great taking people under his wings.
It's a great question because Donovan Smith being – projected at like under $4 million a year, right, I think is what it is. Or Mekhi Becton. I've been more active on X/Twitter this past week than I ever have in my life, having conversations with people, trying to figure out how they feel about certain situations. And I'm going to be completely honest. Everybody agrees with you. When it comes to Mekhi Becton,
sure,
like being a product of his environment, and they see him being better than however many penalties he had, however many. I think he gave up 12 sacks he gave up in 18 penalties, or vice versa, where it was 18 sacks and 12 penalties, one of those two. But I've talked to people and I mentioned you and what you had said, and they're like, I fully believe that too. And all right, well, I guess I'm wrong in this because I have my reserves with them because of those numbers. And I think you said it last week where Mekhi Becton kind of had a little bit of a throat punch to him because he was expecting Aaron Rodgers, this big, high-powered offense, and he just got kicked in the gut when that went away. And it's the same old in Zach Wilson, So we'll see. I wouldn't mind at all having somebody who's young and hungry on the team, just not for almost $13 million.
Right. And, just before we move on here, down to where we want to speak a little bit about this ban of swivel drop tackle. But just a few other, again, honorable mentions with their estimated contracts is Ryan Tannehill for $4.9 million a year. We need a backup quarterback. We need a veteran guy in the room. You got Ezekiel Elliott. We need to bring in a veteran running back. He's estimated about $2.9 million. And listen, the guy knows how to get in the end zone. I'm not mad about it at all.
Having that backup running back for the end zone.
Exactly.
Outside of Isaiah Pacheco just running down your throat.
Right. CEH, we know is still out there. He's estimated $1.6 million. And another guy that we just thought that was funny to throw around is Jadeveon Clowney. He's estimated about 7.2. We know that we lost Mike Dana, and which is projected to get some big money, around $16 million a year is what he's projecting. And then Amenahu is still recovering from injury. So, hey, Jadeveon Clowney is a monster of a player. So, who knows?
Still known best for his hit in college,
yes,
where he removed a running back's helmet.
Absolutely. So, but we got a couple, a big buzz around the NFL with, free agency slowing down outside of the big Sneed deal. But some buzz that is going around is, some of the rules changes. And Justin, I want you to talk about this ban of a swivel hip drop tackle.
I cannot tell you how much I despise this. I say, being a former football player myself, it was 17 years ago. But when you're a football player and you're playing defense, your job is to prevent the ball carrier from gaining yards. Okay? If you're chasing down a runner and trying to prevent them from gaining yards, you're told to wrap up and drop your body weight, right? That's the only way you can prevent somebody from progressing forward, right? You could try to, at full speed, plant your feet and pull backwards, right? But the NFL has approved a ban of the hip drop swivel tackle, whatever you want to call it. Some people are calling it there was another name for it. I couldn't remember. It was a different name. Somebody called it something else on X, but I don't like it. So I did some research yesterday.
Yeah, give us some of those stats of this.
Some stats. All right, so hip drop tackles in 2023 were used 230 times, resulting in 15 players missing time with injuries. So that's about 6.5% of swivel tackles resulted in injury.
And we know the big injury last year was the Mark Andrews injury.
Mark Andrews, right? He missed significant time with a broken, was it tibia?
Yeah, one of those things.
One of those, and like ligaments. I don't know. It's one of the ibias.
Bones. One
of those bones. So I looked into the average amount of plays in a game. I did a lot of math here, guys. I enjoy math, so it was fun for me. The average amount of plays in a game is 153. Okay? The total games in 2023 was 272. I could not find how many injuries there were last season. They didn't give me a total. So I went with the most recent stat they had, which was from 2020, and there was 2,113 injuries in 2020. Not all of those resulted in missing time. Some were just like nagging injuries, but that's how many injuries were reported throughout the season, because you do have to, as a team, report injuries to players, right? So that being said, the total amount of plays per season is 41,616 on average. So with a 2,113 number of injuries around there, we'll call it 2,100. That's an average of 5% of plays result in an injury in the NFL, not all being serious or missing time. Of those, 0.7% of those injuries come from hip drop tackles. Okay, which is not that high. That's not that high.
Not at all.
And when you think of significant injuries, there are more significant injuries from non-contact in the NFL than there are from hip drop swivel tackles. So I'm just saying, let's just not put them on the field. Okay? If that's the case, why a lot of players complain about turf, and the stats between turf and natural grass is a little wishy-washy. I think they kind of pad numbers in favor to show, hey, we can use turf. So there's not a whole lot of information out there for like turf. It's the disparity they're saying is like 0.1%, I think is how this reads. It says a 0.001 difference. I think that reads 2.1%. So it's not huge, but when it comes to the hip drop swivel tackles, I think you can honestly say that 6.5% of the swivel tackles resulting in injury is not that much of a disparity from 5% of all NFL plays resulting in injury. You know, and like I said, there are more. So 15 swivel tackles resulting in injury compared to, I think it was, oh man, I didn't write this one down. There were, I think, 50 or 40 torn ACLs or something like that in the last couple of seasons. Those are non-contact injuries most of the time.
That's very true.
You had 3 quarterbacks tear ACLs or something like that? At least 2. I know of 2 at least, with Rodgers and Cousins. But
I mean, just look at the linebacker from, name has slipped my mind. One of the hardest hitter in the NFL, the Super Bowl in the 49ers.
There were 52 ACL tears suffered last season.
He was running on the field, coming off, from a change of possession.
Yeah.
And then,
the game, yeah. It's so more significant injury, and those are season-ending injuries.
Yes, they are.
They're not just injuries missing time, right? They're season-ending injuries. Even though Aaron Rodgers said he would be back by the end of the season.
Yeah, that didn't happen too much.
But I am very against this. Players, the NFLPA, they don't want this ban.
Yeah, it's hard to control just the way that you're tackling. And to correct our injury with Mark Andrews, there was an ankle injury. But it is very hard to, it's the same. It's the same thing,
right?
Like with when it goes around with the roughing the passer right now. Sometimes those big guys get moving, and of course they don't think to slow down before they hit the quarterback. So it's again,
it's adding a judgment call to referees, which is the one thing we want removed from the referee's decision. We don't want them making judgment calls. The referee should be there to make definitive calls.
Yeah, because that can be that call could be very huge, in the matter of the game,
right?
If they call it when it take place, know. So yeah, we understand there's been injuries and different things, but this is really hard to ban a specific quote unquote tackle, as if to say that it's a tackle on purpose, but.
And some people use the injury to Patrick Mahomes, the high ankle sprain in the postseason. Oh, that's a hip drop tackle. If you think about it, Patrick Mahomes was actually hit up high and the defender slid down him, so that wouldn't even count as a hip drop tackle.
Yeah. He's a slithery snake, so it was hard to get him down, But yeah, don't be hurting our quarterback still, though.
Yeah, we'll come for you.
But so listen, a big, controversy deal there. Hey, comment and tell us your thoughts on that. We want to see what your thoughts are regarding that. Another new rule.
Ooh, I like this.
Yeah, another new rule is the new kickoff rule. Justin, would you kind of talk about this little kickoff rule just for a quick moment?
I've got this. So, I think kickoffs have been obsolete for the past 5 years. I think the rule changed in 2018 where they moved the teams around, moved the setup zone and stuff like that. So we are looking at the TV. They're showing the example from the XFL. There's slight differences from the XFL. So let's look at this. When it comes to the new kickoff rule, so the kickoff spot is going to stay the same for the kickers, right? They're going to be at their own 35-yard line. Big difference, the kicking team, 10 players of the kicking team are going to be on the receiving team's 40-yard line. And then the receiving team will have 7 or more players on their own 35-yard line. And there's a setup zone between their own 35 and their 30 where you can have some players staggered, but 7 players have to be on the line. So 7 people have to be on that 35-yard line. You can have two returners. I mean, theoretically, I think if I read the rule correct, you technically don't need any returners. So you can have technically all 11 guys
From the way that it
from
sounds.
30 to 35-yard line. Not 1,000% sure, but then so your 2 returners are in what's called the landing zone. Okay, the landing zone is from the receiving team's goal line to the 20-yard line. So that being said, the rule is if a kickoff lands short of the landing zone, so I've seen 2 different things. I've seen if it lands short of the receiving team setup line, which is the 35, or short of the landing zone, which is the 20, it'll be treated as an out of bounds kick, and the receiving team goes straight to the 40-yard line. Then, if the kickoff lands in the landing zone, and lands in the landing zone and stops, the receiving team has to return it. They can't leave it. And the way I'm looking at it,
So basically, why it sits there, before he touches it, he can like, which way do I want to go?
Right, exactly. Well, so and I think the way they have it set up is like either until the ball hits the ground or until the receiver catches it, nobody can move, with the exception of the kicker.
Yes, that's correct.
If the ball lands in the landing zone and then ends up in the end zone, so it would be downed in the end zone by the receiving team. Again, this one wasn't quite clear whether the kickoff team could recover in the end zone for a touchdown, or if they touched it in the end zone, if it would be a touchback. It'll go to the 20-yard line. So you're being rewarded for making the ball end up in the end zone. And that's whether it lands in the end zone in the air or bounces in the landing zone and rolls into the end zone. Now, if the ball goes, I'm sorry, that is not true. So it's if the ball rolls into the end zone from the landing zone, it's at the 20-yard line. If the ball lands in the end zone in the air, it goes to the 30-yard line. And then if the ball goes out of the end zone, whether it bounces and rolls or through the air, the ball goes to the 35-yard line. This encourages receivers or return team to return the ball, right? Like a lot of people will probably just wind up kicking the ball short and letting it bounce into that landing zone. Like realistically,
be strategic.
Do super high kicks, something that's not going to bounce out of bounds. It's probably going to be a lot of focus towards the middle of the field because you don't want it to hit the corner and go through the end zone, and then the other team get it at the 35-yard line. So got to be way more strategic. There are no fair catch signals allowed. I thought there was going to be. Would make sense, but no fair catch signals allowed. And all safeties would kick off from the 20-yard line with the current rule we have now. So I like this.
Yeah, I do. It kind of brings back some of those electrifying athletes on, the kick
Dante
return.
Hall.
Yeah, you got Devin Hester. You got some of those
Devin
guys
Hester.
that that's what they have done, and so I think this rule gets to get some of those players back into action, which for us, this potentially adds maybe a reason why Kadarius Toney can be utilized.
I think Kadarius Toney, he's been by far, since we've gotten him, our best returner. He's made more impactful return plays than any other player on our team. Even with Richie James this year, Kadarius Toney has still had more impactful returns than Richie James. Look at the 2 Eagles games, right?
Right.
One in the Super Bowl, one this past year. There's one this past year. He made Eagles kickoff team look silly. He was 2 yards away from breaking a touchdown. So I think it gives him kind of an invigorated purpose with our team. We can trust him in that. He's shown that we can trust him in returns. And it's a good way with this new rule. I think it's going to make some of those shifty running backs in the league as well more viable. People's value. They're talking about people's draft stock going up, like running backs draft stock going up because they were good returners in college. So I think that's good. And I would say I've been following the X in Justin Reed, and that dude has been trolling so much, saying, "I'm getting the leg ready. Put me in, coach.
Put me in the game, coach."
Yeah, he's replying to people saying, "I'll be ready for when the season starts." And I don't know if I hate it. But I would prefer him probably to stay as our safety.
Yeah.
Don't get injured on kickoffs. But
Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
So, yeah, I think that Kadarius Toney is a big factor. I don't know, stats guy. Would you should the Chiefs still keep Kadarius Toney on the roster? Yes or no?
I think so. I mean, you don't have sunk cost really in Kadarius Toney because we only traded our 100 pick for the 209th pick, and just for last season alone,
Stats.
he played for 7 games, 17 targets for 171 yards, and so you can either deal him because you already got your value out of him, or you can move him around because you don't have this massive contract hanging over your head. Trying to justify him starting in games and everything. You can move him to the punt return team or the kickoff return team, or like in 2022, they were doing a lot of handoffs to him, like some other stuff that was kind of shaking up the way
got a
their
lot of the
offense
jet
was working.
sweeps and stuff.
Yeah, so you can talk about the drops, but everyone had drops. Rashee Rice had the same amount of drops as Kadarius Toney did.
Yeah, but he had way more targets.
He did have way more targets. He did have way more targets, so the percentage is off.
Yeah.
But drops were going everywhere. Kelsey had drops. He had drops, and
true.
uncharacteristically,
True.
of them both having those kinds of drops. So I think that you keep them and utilize them in different areas.
Yeah, and another thing is we're not going to get our return on investment if we don't at least try something like this. If he becomes a successful returner with these new rules, we might be able to deal him.
Yeah,
And the pressure's off because he's not he's not one of the main receivers.
Right, and
he
if
can
we
be wide receiver 2 or even 3 in some of those types of cases if he needs to.
If we pick up another receiver in free agency, that throws him down to 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Like with Justin Watson and potentially Sky Moore, having those guys. And, I mean, I think this guy had a lot of potential. He did have drop issues in college, but his upside is very high. He's just had so much pressure put on him, and some people handle it well. Rashee Rice handled it really well. Kadarius Toney wasn't able to handle it, but it doesn't mean he can't going forward.
Yep. So I think they will find a reason to purposefully use him.
Yeah.
And so we hope that again, taking the load off with some bringing in Marquise Brown, who knows what we do in the draft. If we do bring in another veteran wide receiver off free agency, there's some opportunities there that can maybe help relieve some of the pressure that he's feeling. And again, people are going to come in with the new mindset this year because of the goals that we have. Like I'm in the, I'm there every meeting, so I know what the goals that the Chiefs have. You know what I mean? But just kidding. But again, so he comes in, kind of renewed player, ready to go. And again, hopefully some of those guys can help settle them down and, get things rolling. So, again, I think we do keep them. We got to utilize them.
Right.
And with this new kickoff return rule, hey, there may be some for him. He is very shifty when it comes to returns. So, hey, I like it. I have nothing. I'll take it if we can utilize him. Let's try to utilize him. He's not taking up much money, so there's no reason to really get rid of him. So, but that's kind of all that we have time for today. So we appreciate that time. And then Josiah, I got something for you.
Yeah. Just make sure you like and subscribe. We're making content, and if you want to continue listening, that's the best way to get notified whenever we release a video. Any sort of updates, follow us on X and Instagram, hopefully in the future, to keep yourself updated on what we're doing.
Yeah, and you can also include yourself. Easier to contact us probably through X to give us your ideas. Still comment on videos. We'll be reading all of those as well. But if you want like a little bit more interaction, X is definitely the way to go right now. So, yeah, man, this was a fun episode, a little bit longer because we got really passionate about what we were talking about.
Very
Kadarius
passionate.
Sneed took up a lot of that because we loved him so much. Still love the guy. So best of luck to him. And until next time, guys, thy kingdom come.